Yeah, that's a great introduction. Actually, that's me. I'm working as a blockchain specialist in the blockchain team of Rabobank. It's funny because I go to a lot of conferences and I see enterprises and banks always at blockchain conferences, and I think this is one of the first conferences where there are not so many corporations and not so many banks. So I'm really happy to see that. But obviously, I want to tell you a lot more about the work that we are doing in our team. That's okay. So I want to tell you more about blockchain and trade finance. So trade finance is a very old industry, and banks have been involved in financing trade already for the time that they have existed. And I think blockchain is really a very good technology to use within trade finance. And I gave some reasons here. So for example, financing trade. So trade is basically goods going from A to B, and a bank that is providing any financial products related to that. And this process is still today very paper-based. I think we heard examples already before. If commodities are going from A to B, then paper is involved. There's a bill of lading that we as a bank need to have, which confirms what kind of goods are transported, who are the parties involved. These are all things that we need to know in order to finance the trade. And there are many parties involved as well. So we talked about producers already. I think the last talk was great about Walmart, about retailers, their ports, their logistic providers. There's so many parties involved when it comes to trade. We once worked with a client who was a trader, a dairy trader, so buys and sells commodities. And he tracked once the goods going from place to place, and there was this identification number, and he said that the number related to those goods was used 140 times. So it starts with basically a farmer maybe, and it ends up at the consumer, and it goes through all kind of different information systems. It goes through a lot of different parties, and all these parties have silos of data, and they're not interconnected. So there's a lot of manual work, a lot of paperwork, and also it can happen that there are different versions of the truth, because papers can get lost or things can go wrong. So it's really still a very cumbersome job to do, to be active in international trade. So it's nice actually to talk about real life examples. Have you heard of any of these initiatives? Maybe Marco Polo, Voltron, WeTrade. Yes, WeTrade maybe? Yeah. Yes, of course, yeah. So these are really different initiatives, all in the international trade area, that are actually already in production or close to production. So I'm going to tell you more about WeTrade, because Rabobank is involved in WeTrade. But Comgo is a great example as well. We're also involved in this, where we work together with other banks, but also actually with organizations from the sector. So for example, with Shell. Because we want to try to solve these kind of problems together, like not only banks solving problems for the sector, but together with the organizations that are actually part of that sector, obviously. So you see initiatives happening on different kind of blockchain technologies. So WeTrade is built on Hyperledger Fabric, but for example Voltron and Marco Polo are built on Corda. So you see these consortia of banks together with the industries working together on solving these problems. So trade finance is really, if you want to learn more about blockchain and about the real use cases and real applications, then take a close look at trade finance, because I think blockchain solves a lot of problems we see here. So yeah, I want to talk a bit more about WeTrade. So we as a bank are involved in WeTrade, and WeTrade is live. So clients of us are actually really using the platform. So this is blockchain really yeah, really alive. And I'm going to show you a demo later so you can see a blockchain application in use. And what's funny is usually I start a presentation about WeTrade saying what is more innovative, blockchain technology or 12 banks working together. But I think it's really a great project that I want to show you. So we talked already a bit about how international trade looks like today. But I think you all have experienced a similar problem in your daily life as well. Because when we look at SMEs, especially SMEs that are usually trading domestically, so within your own country, if they want to trade with another organization in Europe, there's really this catch-22. So for example, I'm the buyer and I want to buy something I'm from the Netherlands and I want to buy something from a German counterparty, from a German organization. Then I don't know this organization, I don't know if I can trust this organization. Obviously I want to buy something from you, which means I need to give something in return, which is euros. Maybe I should pay you first and then you send me the goods, or you send the goods first and then I pay you. This is really a problem in international trade, because if trust is so important, and we heard that before this morning, it's so important that it can actually limited business if you don't trust your counterparty. So that is basically where WeTrade solves a problem. So it's really to bring trust between parties. It's really a platform that you can use if you want to find new business or maybe establish a new relationship with a counterparty somewhere in Europe. And that's why it's so important that we work together with different European banks. So we create this platform for our clients in Europe. So what can you do on the platform? And I'm going to show you later how it actually looks like. On the platform, you can make trade proposals. So I can find another organization in Europe, and I can ask them, I want to buy something from you. Can you please give me a quote for that? So I can find new partners in the platform. And one of the most important things of the platform is that you can put payment conditions. And these payment conditions are built on smart contracts. So we talked a lot already about smart contracts, but smart contracts are just business logic. It's basically saying, if this happens, then I want this to happen. So within international trades, you can obviously imagine that I only want to pay if the goods are really at my front door. And this is something that you can program, and that is exactly what the platform is doing. So we can make an agreement, and whenever the goods are at my door, then the payment is being done. So what the platform enables are conditional payments, and that is exactly what smart contracts were built for. And then obviously there are traditional bank services. So for example, if you want to finance your invoice, usually it's very common in international trade that you only get paid after 60 days, for example. If you don't want to wait for that money, you can also ask the bank to finance it. You receive the money today and then the bank receives the money in 60 days. So it's really both technology platform, but it also has traditional finance products built into it. So I talked already a bit about this. So it's built on Hyperledger Fabric, which is a private blockchain technology, which means that only the banks that are involved in WeTrade can actually be part of the platform. So also only customers of the banks that are involved in WeTrade are part of the platform. The marketing directory, I already briefly mentioned it. It's just basically yellow pages where you can find new companies that you want to trade with. Well, the smart contracts, we talked about that as well. It's really about the payment conditions. So it's really automatic payments and conditional payments, which is really, it sounds very easy, but it's really innovative for our clients, because our clients, companies, are today not able to do conditional payments. They cannot say, you just do a transaction for me whenever I tell you. No, it doesn't really work like that at the moment. So it's great that in this platform that can happen. Well, integration ready is more for other banks, so other banks can also join the platform, obviously. And there's also a track and trace possibility within the platform, and that's quite important because you can decide on payment conditions between two parties, so between two organizations, but you also want third parties to confirm that something has happened. So for example, if I'm the buyer, I can obviously say, yes, the goods have arrived, and I can confirm that. But maybe I'll cheat and never say that the goods actually arrived. So you also want third parties that are able to confirm that information, so that the platform becomes an ecosystem of not only banks and organizations involved, but also logistic providers or other type of services that can add to the platform. Well, this is basically the history. So WeTrade started in 2017 already. So that is when the first talks between the banks started. And KBC, Belgian bank, and Rabobank did the first proof of concept where they tried to actually build this type of platform. They did the first transaction, and that's how it all started, and the ecosystem of banks started to grow. Last year it went live, which means that all the banks are now offering this to a limited amount of clients. We also do the same, and we also try to educate our clients about how the platform works and what the advantages are for them. Since I don't have much time, I'm going to go to the demo, I think. Yes. Oh. So in the demo, I'm going to stop it right here because this is basically how the process works. So as a buyer, I want to create a purchase order. I want to buy something, and then the seller can actually accept it. Obviously, this is a normal process. Then the seller ships the goods. The seller can update the invoice details, and the buyer receives the goods. It's a very normal process, actually. And then whenever you made use of a financial product, then the buyer bank makes a payment to the seller. So actually, that's what I also like about blockchain. It can automate and improve certain services. But actually, when you look at the platform, it looks very normal. So I'm going to show you that. So it's going to be a walkthrough of the platform, and I'm going to explain you what you see. So basically, we're going to see all these steps. So this is how the platform looks like, and this is how you can find actually other companies on the platform. So I'm going to stop it here because this step, maybe a bit further, is really important. So these settlement conditions is what I've been talking about. And these are the types of conditions that will be recorded in the blockchain. And once this condition is met, then an automatic payment is being done. So the platform is at the back end connected with our regular payment systems, which means that the blockchain is checked every 10 minutes if a condition is met, and then the payment can be automatically done. There's no one in between that needs to actually do that. So the buyer and the seller, they agree on the payment conditions, and this gets recorded on the platform and hence in the blockchain. And you just fill in all the different types of information that you would usually do as well when you are doing a trade. So there's lots of information that you can add on the products, on the price, all these things that you would normally discuss as well. If you want, you can also add the track and trace information so that this party could also actually confirm that the goods were received, for example. Well, I think you'll have an idea of how the platform works. It just continues, and it will show how the transaction continues. This one. Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry. Yes. So this is how the platform looks like. And obviously, right now we are at the right top, where WeTrade is basically an ecosystem of banks, but the trade, international trade, is much more than only the financing part. Obviously, it's on the left you see or airports, ports, authorities, all these different players that are part of the international trade ecosystem. They have all have information that can be potentially very valuable for either the end consumer or the next party within the supply chain. So the ambition of WeTrade is really to be a network of networks, and I think that is what we'll see in a lot of different blockchain projects. I think it's great that banks are trying to work together to improve the products and services for their clients, but eventually the ecosystem is much bigger than that. And that's what blockchain actually is. It's obviously all about collaboration and about building these kind of ecosystems together. So this is the end of the presentation that I wanted to give you. Do you have any questions?
Okay, 2 questions.
You briefly mentioned that you're educating your clients in order to use this type of platform. How much convincing do you have to do? How much explanation, and how do you do that to make people join this system?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think they see the added value in terms of the conditional payment. So it makes usually organizations now trade on open accounts, which means they trade on trust. So if we would do a transaction together and I don't know you, then I just have to trust that it will be all right. So explaining to them, well, you don't need to trust anymore, but you have a platform where you can administer this, makes already a big difference because it's of added value to them. Obviously, this is still a separate platform, and usually SMEs have their own ERP system, for example, so they would like to see this integrated with the systems they already have. So I think the education part is very important, and we'll explain them the added value to them. And we do that by going to them and explaining them how they can use it, but also obviously the platform becomes more valuable if more banks are added, because that means there are more corporations added as well. So we try to also ask them to help us to tell us what kind of organizations they're looking for, so we can also add that on the platform. So that's also actually a collaboration between us as a bank and the organizations that we're working for.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going this way.
When you showed us the mask where you put in your data to start a transaction, one of the drop-down menu points said like terms agreed by the parties. So what level of customization is possible in that step? So if the parties have really complicated terms, how much can they put in there, or is there a limit to what the system at the moment can do in terms of individualization?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because obviously we need to also develop some standards, because we as 12 or 14 banks together now need to work all in the same way, because otherwise we cannot use one platform. So that's a good question actually, and right now there's this is not the newest demo actually, so I think there's a bit more flexibility. But there's not. At the end, if we want to work in one way, then there's not so much flexibility anymore like there is today. But the platform is still developing. So we're actually using user feedback as well to improve the platform. But it's a good question because, yeah, I think with blockchain technology in itself, you need to work towards some standards. So everybody interprets the data the same and everybody inputs the same data. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, okay.
What happens if something changes in the process, like the way of payment needs to change or the address where the product needs to go to? Can you change it on the blockchain? Obviously not, can you?
Well, in the WeTrade platform, there's really not that much information stored on the blockchain. So, for example, only companies that are a client of one of the participating banks can join the platform, which means they all went through the Know Your Customer process. So organizations were checked and are clients of the bank. So we have this official process that they need to go through. So what was your question?
Well, if you need to change payment details during the process.
Right. So no, it's really linked to your bank account. Yeah.
Okay, great.
But if you want to, obviously you can, how do you say, negotiate about the payment terms and everything, but it's basically before you actually enter it in the platform.
And once it's fixed, it can't be changed no longer?
No, it's like, well, this is the agreement that we made. So we agree that I buy something from you at a specific price. Then that's the agreement that you make. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And my question is more or less the same, but what is happen when I receive the good? I give the information in the blockchain that I received the good. Then later on I check the good and it's damaged or it's a mess. I don't want to use it, so I make a RMA process, send it back to the supplier. But you will pay then the supplier meanwhile, while the smart contract is still working?
Yeah, obviously there are, the blockchain technology is obviously just a decentralized database, so it doesn't really solve these kind of issues. So there's a resolution, like a dispute solution as well. So, but it is beyond the blockchain technology really, because it's how we deal with daily life activities as well. So I think right now within the platform, then you wouldn't confirm that you received the goods, or there's a possibility to actually not accept them and solve this outside the administration. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there's one more. Okay.
To my understanding, currently the buyer has to actively acknowledge that the goods have been shipped, right? So are there any plans to maybe utilize IoT technology to basically track that some goods are at a place where an agreed upon place and then the transaction is triggered automatically? Okay, that would be a good case, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's why we started with the track and trace possibility. So there's an API connection with aftership.com, which basically recognizes or can confirm that as well. So that's why this integration with third parties and with logistic providers is really important, because you don't want any disputes between the buyer and the seller. You also want third parties to confirm that, because logistics providers know where the goods are, and if they are at the address of the buyer, then they can also confirm that, obviously. So, and with IoT, I think it's a very interesting case. I think I think, yeah, maybe in the future. Right now we don't have it, but I think it's, yeah, could be definitely possible in the future.